The ship came out of hyperspace like a knife cutting through black cloth. Ambassador Una Park stood at the observation window and watched as the Velen orbital station grew larger. It was beautiful in a cold way. Silver towers rose from a ring of metal that circled a dead moon. Lights blinked along its surface like stars trapped in glass. Una had spent 3 months preparing for this moment. 3 months of learning Velen customs, their language, their history. 3 months of being told by everyone that this mission would fail. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only discovered faster than light travel 60 years ago. The Velens had ruled their corner of space for 10,000 years. They did not respect newcomers, but Una was not here to be respected. She was here to get a trade agreement that would change humanity's future among the stars. Lieutenant Doyen Lee appeared at her side. He was young, only 28, but he moved with the careful awareness of a soldier who had seen combat. His job was simple: keep the ambassador alive. He took this job very seriously. "The station has cleared us for docking," he said. "They are sending an escort." Una nodded but did not look away from the window. "What do you know about Velen banquets, Doyen?" "They last for hours. Many courses. It is considered rude to refuse any dish." He paused. "Also, they have poisoned guests before. Political enemies, rivals. It is not common, but it happens." "I know," Una said softly. Doyun looked at her. There was something in her voice that worried him. But before he could ask, the ship shuddered gently. They had docked. The escort was waiting for them in a long corridor made of something that looked like white marble, but felt warm to the touch. 6 Velen guards stood in perfect formation. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with silver skin that seemed to glow from within. Their eyes were large and completely black. They wore armor that fit their bodies like a second skin. None of them spoke. They simply turned and began walking. Una and Dohin followed. The station was larger than it appeared from outside. They walked for 20 minutes through hallways and across bridges that looked down into gardens filled with plants that moved on their own. Una saw other species along the way. Small creatures with too many legs. Tall beings made of what looked like living stone. A group of figures wrapped in cloth that showed nothing but their glowing eyes. All of them stopped to stare at the humans. Some with curiosity, some with something darker. Finally, they reached the banquet hall. It was a massive room with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. The walls were alive with soft light that shifted colors like the surface of oil on water. Long tables filled the space, arranged in a pattern that Una recognized from her studies. The most important guests sat closest to the center. Everyone else spread outward like rings in a pond, and there were many guests. Hundreds of Velens in formal robes of deep blue and purple. Diplomats from a dozen other species. Servants moving between tables with trays of food and drink. At the center table sat Lord Tavros, High Minister of the Velen Dominion. He was older than the others, his silver skin darker, like tarnished metal. But his eyes were sharp and his posture was perfect. He watched Una approach with an expression that revealed nothing. Beside him sat Counselor Merrick. He was thin where Tavros was broad, and there was something in his face that reminded Una of a snake. His role in the Dominion was intelligence, spies, secrets, eliminating problems before they became dangerous. Una had read his file. She knew what he was capable of. "Ambassador Park," Lord Tavros said. His voice was deep and filled the hall without effort. "Welcome to our station. We are honored by your presence." The words were polite. The tone suggested otherwise. "High Minister," Una replied with a bow. "Thank you for receiving us. Humanity hopes this will be the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples." A few Velens made small sounds that might have been laughter. Una ignored them. She was led to a seat at the center table, not far from Tavros himself. This was a position of honor, or at least it appeared to be. Do-hyun was placed at a table behind her, close enough to watch, but too far to help quickly if something went wrong. The banquet began. The first course arrived on plates made of crystal. It was something that looked like pale meat covered in a dark sauce. Yuna did not know what animal it came from. She did not ask. She simply picked up the eating tools and took a bite. It was actually delicious. Rich and strange, with flavors she had never tasted before. Counselor Mirek watched her eat. He had not touched his own food. His thin lips curved into a smile that did not reach his eyes. Yuna noticed. She noticed everything. But she kept eating. Do-hyun had a small device hidden in his sleeve. It could scan for common poisons, radiation, and biological threats. He had scanned the room when they entered. Now, he pointed it at Yuna's plate from across the room. The device vibrated against his wrist. A warning. His blood went cold. He wanted to stand up. He wanted to cross the room and knock the plate from her hands. But she had given him orders before they arrived. Clear orders. Whatever happens, do not act until I give the signal. So he sat there. He watched the woman he was sworn to protect eat food that his scanner said would kill her. And he waited. Yuna took another bite. Then another. The sauce was particularly good, she thought. It had a slight bitterness underneath the other flavors. Most people would not notice it. She noticed. She knew exactly what it was, and she kept eating anyway. The second course was a soup. It came in bowls that floated above the table, held up by some technology Yuna did not understand. The liquid inside was golden and smelled like flowers after rain. She drank it slowly, enjoying the warmth as it went down her throat. By the time the third course arrived, something was wrong with her body. It started small. A tingling in her fingers. A slight shake in her hands when she reached for her cup. Sweat appeared on her forehead, even though the room was cool. Her heart began to beat faster, harder, like it was trying to escape her chest. Yuna set down her eating tools and took a slow breath. The room seemed to spin for just a moment before settling again. The villains were watching her now. Not all of them, but enough. Conversations had become quieter. Eyes kept drifting to the human ambassador, who had started to show signs of distress. Counselor Mirek leaned back in his chair. The smile on his face had grown wider. He looked like someone watching a play reach its final act. Lord Tavros turned to Yuna with an expression of concern that looked almost real. Ambassador Park, you seem unwell. Is the food not agreeing with you? I am fine, High Minister, Yuna said. Her voice was steady, even though her body was not. Perhaps the journey was more tiring than I realized. Of course, Tavros said. Space travel can be difficult for species not built for it. More quiet laughter from around the room. Behind her, Do-hyun was struggling to stay in his seat. His scanner had confirmed what he feared. The compound in her food was called Night Veil. It was one of the most dangerous poisons in the known galaxy. It attacked the nervous system, shutting down the body piece by piece. First came the tremors, then the paralysis, then death. There was no cure, no antidote. Every species that had been exposed to Night Veil had died within an hour. Every single one. Do-hyun's hand moved toward his weapon. He could start shooting. He could grab the ambassador and try to fight his way back to the ship. It would be suicide, but at least he would be doing something. But Yuna had told him to wait. She had been very clear about that. And despite everything, despite the fear that was eating him from the inside, he trusted her. The fourth course arrived. It was some kind of vegetable, purple, and shaped like a star, arranged in a pattern on the plate. Yuna looked at it for a long moment. Then she picked up her tools and began to eat. The room went quiet. Completely quiet. Even the servants stopped moving. Counselor Myrick's smile faltered. This was not supposed to happen. By now, the human should be on the floor. She should be gasping for breath, unable to move, dying in front of everyone as a warning to other species who thought they could negotiate with the Dominion as equals. Instead, she was eating. Slowly, carefully, but she was eating. Una finished the fourth course. She wiped her mouth with the cloth napkin and looked up at Lord Tavros. This is excellent food, High Minister. My compliments to your kitchen staff. Tavros did not respond. He was staring at her like she was some kind of impossible creature. Una reached for her glass. Her hand shook badly, but she managed to grip it. She raised it high enough for everyone in the room to see. A toast, she said. Her voice carried across the silent hall. To friendship between our peoples. To trade and cooperation. And to the hospitality of the Velen Dominion, which I will not soon forget. She drank. The liquid burned going down, but she did not show it. The room remained frozen. No one knew what to do. The plan had been simple. Poison the human. Watch her die. Send her body back to Earth as a message. Humanity was not welcome in this part of space, but the human was not dying. She was shaking and sweating and clearly in pain, but she was not dying. Una set down her glass and looked directly at Counselor Myrick. She held his gaze for 5 seconds. 10 seconds. She did not blink. Myrick looked away first. Something was happening inside Una's body. Something that the Velens could not see and would not understand even if they could. Her liver was working harder than it had ever worked before. Her kidneys were filtering her blood at 3 times the normal rate. Specialized cells in her stomach were breaking down the poison into components her body could handle. This was not natural. No species could do this naturally, but humans had known about this mission for months. They had known about the poison, and they had prepared. Una had spent 6 weeks in a medical facility on Earth. Doctors had modified her body at the genetic level. They had given her new proteins, new enzymes, new defenses against compounds that should have killed her. They had turned her into something that could survive NIGHTVIL. It hurt. God, it hurt more than anything she had ever experienced. Her body was fighting a war inside itself, and she felt every battle. But she would not fall. She would not give these silver-skinned politicians the satisfaction of seeing a human die at their table. The 5th course arrived. More meat, this time in a red sauce that smelled of spices. Una picked up her tools. Her hands were shaking so badly now that it was hard to hold them. But she managed. She always managed. She took a bite, and somewhere behind her, Do-hyun finally let out the breath he had been holding. He did not understand what was happening. He did not know how she was still alive. But he was starting to realize something important. Ambassador, Una Park had walked into this trap on purpose, and the trap was not for her. Una finished the last bite of the final course. She set down her eating tools with careful precision. Her whole body was screaming at her. Every muscle ached. Her vision kept going blurry at the edges, but she had done it. She had eaten everything. The banquet hall was still silent. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species sat frozen in their seats, watching the human who should be dead. Una pushed back her chair and stood up. It took everything she had not to fall over. Her legs felt like they were made of water. But she locked her knees and forced herself to stay upright. "Thank you for the meal," she said. Her voice echoed in the quiet room. It was memorable. Lord Tavros found his voice at last. "How are you still standing?" It was not a polite question. It was not a diplomatic question. It was the question of someone who had seen the impossible and needed an answer. Una smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Because I am human, High Minister. And humans are harder to kill than you think." She turned slowly, looking at all the faces watching her. Velen diplomats, alien observers, servants who had stopped pretending to work. Everyone was waiting to hear what she would say next. "Let me tell you a story about my species," Yuna began. "We come from a planet called Earth. It is a beautiful world in many ways. Blue oceans, green forests, mountains that touch the clouds. But it is also a world that has tried to kill us every single day since we first appeared." She took a step forward, then another. Walking helped her focus through the pain. "Our planet has diseases that can kill millions in months. We have animals with venom that stops the heart in seconds. We have plants that look beautiful but contain poisons that attack every system in the body. We have weather that can destroy cities. We have earthquakes and volcanoes and floods." Our voice grew stronger as she spoke. The pain was still there, but she pushed it aside. This moment was too important. "And you know what we did? We survived. Not by hiding. Not by running away. We survived by adapting. By getting stronger. By teaching our bodies to handle things that should have killed us." She stopped in front of Counselor Marek's seat. He looked up at her with wide eyes. The confidence he had shown earlier was gone. "Your poison," Yuna said. "Night Veil. It is similar to something we have on Earth. A plant called oleander. It grows in gardens. Children are taught to stay away from it. But we have been studying it for hundreds of years. We know how it works. We know how to survive it." This was not entirely true. Oleander and Night Veil were only somewhat similar. But the point was not about science. The point was about fear. "Humans drink poison for fun," she continued. "We call it alcohol. It damages our bodies, but we drink it anyway because we enjoy how it makes us feel. We eat plants that cause pain in our mouths because we like the sensation. We build immunity to diseases by injecting ourselves with weak versions of those same diseases." She leaned closer to Mirek, close enough that she could smell his fear. "We are not like other species, Counselor. We did not evolve on a gentle world. We evolved on a death world. And that made us into something the galaxy has never seen before." Yuna straightened up and turned back to Lord Tavros. Her body was starting to stabilize now. The worst of the poison was being broken down. She would need medical attention soon, but not immediately. She could finish this first. "I knew about the poison before I arrived," she said. "Human intelligence intercepted your communications 3 weeks ago. We broke your encryption in 6 hours. Your most secret channels are open books to our people." Tavros's face went pale. This was worse than the failed assassination. This meant their entire security was compromised. "I came here knowing I would be poisoned," Yuna continued. "I prepared my body to survive it. I wanted to prove something to you, High Minister. Something important." She walked back to her chair but did not sit down. "Humanity is 60 years old in space. You have been here for 10,000 years. We understand why you looked down on us. We understand why you thought you could kill me without consequences. But you were wrong." Her eyes moved to Mirek again. "And you, Counselor, you planned this. You chose the poison. You gave the order to put it in my food. Did you really think we would not find out? Did you really think we would not be prepared?" Mirek said nothing. His silver skin had turned almost white. "Humans have a saying," Yuna said. "What does not kill us makes us stronger. Your poison has not killed me. And now, thanks to you, I am stronger. Thanks to you, I know exactly who my enemies are in this room." She placed both hands on the table and leaned forward. "So let us talk about what happens next, High Minister. Because I did not come all this way just to survive. I came to show you what humans are capable of. And we are only getting started." The room remained silent, but the silence had changed. It was no longer the silence of anticipation. It was the silence of fear. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Velen Dominion was afraid. Lord Tavros rose from his seat. His movements were slow and careful, like a man walking on ice that might break at any moment. The other Velens in the room watched him with expressions of shock and uncertainty. "Counselor Mirak," Tavros said. His voice was cold. "Is what the ambassador says true? Did you order this?" Mirak stood up too fast, knocking his chair backward. "High Minister, I was acting in the best interests of the Dominion. These humans are a threat. They spread too quickly. They learn too fast. If we allow them to grow stronger, they will become dangerous. I was protecting our people. By murdering a diplomat at my table?" Tavros' voice rose. "By committing an act that violates every law of hospitality we have honored for thousands of years?" "She was supposed to die," Mirak said. His eyes darted around the room, looking for support. He found none. "No species survives Night Vale. How was I supposed to know humans were different?" "You were supposed to know because it was your job to know," Tavros replied. "You run our intelligence operations. You are supposed to understand our enemies. Instead, you have made us look like fools. Worse, you have made us look weak." Yuna watched the exchange with satisfaction. This was exactly what she had hoped for. The Velens were turning on each other. The failed assassination had exposed cracks in their leadership that she could use, but she was not finished yet. "High Minister," she said, "I appreciate that you are angry, but this is not just a matter of Velen law." Tavros looked at her. "What do you mean?" "Among my people, we have traditions for situations like this." Yuna's voice was calm and steady. "When someone tries to kill you at their own table, you have the right to answer that insult directly, personally." The room went even quieter than before. Do-hyun had risen from his seat and moved closer to Yuna. His hand was on his weapon, though he had not drawn it yet. "You want to challenge Mirak?" Tavros asked. There was surprise in his voice, but also something else. "Interest. I want justice," Yuna said. "Your justice or mine. But justice either way." Tavros considered this. His eyes moved between Yuna and Mirak. The counselor had gone very still, like an animal that knows a predator is nearby. "Velen law is clear," Tavros said finally. "Those who commit crimes against diplomatic guests must face punishment, death or exile. There is no other choice." "Then let me be the one to deliver that punishment," Yuna said. "Not as an insult to your authority, High Minister, but as a message to everyone watching, to every species in this room who thinks humans are weak." She stepped forward, away from the table. Her body was still recovering from the poison, but she moved with purpose. Every step was deliberate. Every motion was controlled. "I am not asking for weapons," she continued. "I am not asking for advantage. I simply want the chance to face the man who tried to kill me." Mirak finally found his voice. "This is absurd. She is human. Humans are fragile. I am a trained officer of the Dominion. Fragile?" Yuna laughed. It was not a kind sound. "I just ate enough poison to kill 100 of your people, and I am still standing. Does that seem fragile to you?" Tavros raised a hand for silence. The room obeyed. "Counselor Mirak," he said, "you have brought shame upon the Dominion. You have violated our most sacred laws. You have failed in your duty. I should have you executed here and now." He paused. His black eyes studied Yuna with new respect. "But the ambassador has asked for the right to face you herself. This is unusual, but not without precedent. Other species have similar customs. If she wishes to risk herself against you, that is her choice." Myrick's face twisted with anger and fear. "High Minister, you cannot be serious. This is humiliation. You are giving this human authority over Velen matters." "No," Tavros said. I am giving her the chance to prove what she has claimed, that humans are more dangerous than we believed. He looked at Yuna, and I am curious to see if she is telling the truth. Yuna nodded. Thank you, High Minister. She turned to face Mirek fully. The counselor was taller than her by nearly 2 feet. He was stronger, faster, and had been trained in combat since he was young. By every measure, he should win any physical confrontation. But Yuna had something he did not. She had prepared for this. Mirek moved first. His hand went for a weapon hidden in his robes. It was a small energy blade, barely legal even for someone of his rank. He was fast, faster than most species could track. But Dayan was faster. The shot from his sidearm hit Mirek's wrist before the blade was fully drawn. The weapon went spinning across the floor, and Mirek screamed in pain and surprise. My apologies, Dayan said. His voice was calm. But the ambassador said no weapons. Yuna smiled. Thank you, Lieutenant. Then she moved. She crossed the distance between them in seconds. Mirek was still clutching his injured wrist when her hand closed around his throat. He was bigger, stronger, but she had leverage and momentum. She pushed him backward until his back hit the wall. Do you know what else humans are good at? She asked. Her face was inches from his. We are good at holding grudges. We remember everyone who wrongs us. And we do not forget. Mirek struggled, but her grip was iron. The modifications to her body had not just helped her survive the poison. They had made her stronger than a normal human. Strong enough to hold a Velen against a wall. Please, Mirek gasped. I was following orders. I was doing my duty. Whose orders? Yuna asked. Who told you to kill me? Fear and pain broke through his remaining pride. The Council. The Intelligence Council. They saw humans as a threat. They wanted to stop your species before you became too powerful. Yuna nodded slowly. This was the information she needed. This was what she had really come for. Thank you, Counselor, she said. That is very helpful. She tightened her grip. Not enough to kill. Not yet. Now let us talk about justice. Yuna held Mirek against the wall for a long moment. The entire room watched in silence. No one moved to help the counselor. No one dared. With her free hand, Yuna reached into her sleeve and pulled out a small glass container. It was no bigger than her thumb, filled with a dark liquid that seemed to move on its own. Do you know what this is? She asked Mirek. His eyes went wide with recognition. No, please. This is night veil, Yuna said. The same poison you put in my food. But this is concentrated, pure, extracted from my own blood as my body broke it down. She held the container up where everyone could see. The liquid inside swirled like smoke trapped in glass. My doctors told me this would happen. They said my body would collect the poison as it fought to survive. They said I should dispose of it safely when I returned to my ship. She smiled. It was a cold smile, but I thought I might find a better use for it. Mirek was crying now. Silver tears ran down his silver face. Please, I was just following orders. I have a family, children. You should have thought about that before you tried to kill me, Yuna said. She looked at Lord Tavros. The High Minister stood perfectly still, watching with an expression that was impossible to read. High Minister, Yuna said. What is the Velen punishment for attempting to murder a diplomatic guest? Death, Tavros replied. His voice was flat. By whatever method the victim chooses. Yuna nodded. Then I'd choose this. She broke the seal on the container. The smell that came out was faint but terrible, like flowers that had rotted in the dark. Mirek struggled harder. He tried to break free, tried to turn his face away, but Yuna held him with strength that should have been impossible for a human her size. The modifications had worked better than anyone expected. This is for every human who will come after me, she said. for every diplomat who will face the same threats I faced. This is my message to everyone who thinks they can hurt us without consequences." She pressed the container to his lips and forced the liquid down his throat. The effect was immediate. Myrick's body went rigid. His eyes rolled back. A terrible sound came from his throat as every muscle in his body began to fail at once. Una released him and stepped back. He fell to the floor, convulsing. The seizures lasted less than 10 seconds. Then he was still. The silence in the room was absolute. Una straightened her formal robes. Her hands were steady now. The poison in her own body was almost gone, neutralized by the medical technology flowing through her blood. She felt tired but clear. The hard part was over. She turned to face Lord Tavros once more. "Now," she said. Her voice was calm, professional. "I believe we were discussing a trade agreement." Tavros stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, something like respect appeared in his ancient eyes. "Yes," he said. "I believe we were." The agreement was signed that night. The terms were more favorable to humanity than anyone had expected. Access to 3 new trading routes. Permission to establish a permanent embassy on the station. Technology exchanges that would advance human science by decades. In return, humanity promised friendship, cooperation, the chance to learn from each other instead of fighting. Word spread through the galaxy quickly. Every species with ears heard what had happened at the Velen banquet. A human had been poisoned and survived. A human had killed a Velen counselor with his own weapon. A human had walked into a trap and turned it into a victory. Other species began to look at humanity differently, not as newcomers to be ignored or destroyed, but as something dangerous, something that should be treated with respect. 2 weeks later, Una returned to Earth. The spaceport was crowded with people waiting to welcome her home. Officials, reporters, citizens who had followed the news and wanted to see the woman who had changed humanity's place in the galaxy. But Una walked past all of them. She walked to a small girl standing with her grandmother near the edge of the crowd. "Aunt Una?" Somi ran forward and threw her arms around her. She was 8 years old, with bright eyes and a smile that could light up any room. Una knelt down and hugged her back. "I missed you, little one." "Grandmother says you went to space," Somi said. "She says you met aliens, and they were mean to you." Una laughed. It was a real laugh this time, warm and genuine. "Some of them were mean, but I think they learned their lesson. Did you eat space food? Was it good?" Una thought about the banquet, the poison, the pain, the look on Myrick's face as he died. "The food was interesting," she said, "but nothing beats your grandmother's cooking." Somi giggled and took her hand. Together, they walked toward the waiting car, leaving the crowds and the cameras behind. Do-Yoon watched them go. He had stayed close to the ambassador throughout the journey home, but now his job was done. She was safe. Humanity was safer than it had been before. He thought about everything he had seen. The poison, the confrontation, the way Una had faced down an entire empire and won. He had been trained as a soldier, taught to fight and protect. But Una had shown him something different. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the fastest or the oldest or the most advanced. But they were survivors. They had clawed their way up from a death world, fighting every step of the way. And when someone tried to push them down, they pushed back, hard. Do-Yoon smiled and followed his ambassador home. The galaxy had learned an important lesson today. It was a lesson that would be repeated many times in the years to come. Never try to kill a human, unless you are absolutely certain you will succeed. Because if you fail, they will not just survive, they will make you regret it.